You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Athan Hristodulu.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. It is January 1st, 2022. Happy New Year, and welcome to the show. We are doing another State of the Franchise video today, and we are going to be discussing none other than the New York Giants, so make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe for more content if you enjoy what we're doing here. But we're going to dive right into things, and like I said, we are discussing the state of the New York Giants, the 4-11 New York Giants that have been eliminated from playoff contention. I would say a very disappointing year considering the high expectations some people had for them, myself included. I was expecting a lot from this New York Giants team, where I was thinking they had a ceiling that could reach anywhere from like 10, 11, 12, maybe even 13 games. That things really went well for them. A lot of people were hoping to see Daniel Jones make that big leap in year 3, and it just did not happen. A lot has not worked out for them, and they've kind of fallen apart on offense in about every way imaginable. The passing game is non-existent. The running game is non-existent. Offensive line has not been great. Skill players have not been great themselves because of the lack of a passing game and running game to really go with it. So a whole lot of disappointment, I would say. But before we get too much into all the negative stuff, I always like to start these off with some good, and we're going to discuss first the building blocks that this team has, because there's actually quite a few. When I started listing them out, there is a handful of bright spots on this team. So let's talk about some of the building blocks, some of the positives with some of these players that we have on this team, and kind of look at, the players that will help shape this team, in my opinion, going forward, and who the Giants should make sure that they're focusing on as key players for this team. And the first one that I think is a safety in this league that is not getting the love he deserves and should be is safety Xavier Mckinney. The guy has been great on the back end for the Giants. He has 5 interceptions, so tied for first with safeties there. I mean, the guy has just been outstanding, and I think because the Giants are sitting at 4-11 and a lot has gone wrong for them, he's a guy that has not been getting the love that he should be. Next up are the 2 edge rushers in Leonard Williams and Aziz Ojolari. And I don't know if Leonard Williams is a true edge rusher. He does kind of play the outside, but the Giants do run a 3-4 defense. So he's not a linebacker, but he's not like a true DN, but he is a guy that gets after the quarterback fairly frequently with 7 sacks and 43 pressures leading the team. And then Aziz Ojolari, the rookie, who has quietly had a really good year. He's sitting at 9 sacks at this point in the season, 36 total pressures. I mean, the guy's making a difference getting after the quarterback. And then on the D-line as well, Dexter Lawrence, the guy has 3 sacks and 40 pressures as well. This is a D-line and just kind of a unit, a pass rush, I guess you could say, that can really get after the quarterback and cause some problems for opposing offenses. And again, another thing that I don't feel really gets talked about a ton because of how much the team has struggled. But I mean, they're set when it comes to getting after the quarterback, at least for the next couple of years, in my opinion. Leonard Williams has through his entire career, been an effective rusher. Aziz looking awesome in his first year, and Dexter Lawrence they've had for a few years now, and he's really starting to step up and look good inside the interior of the D-line. Now, aside from the D-line, we also mentioned Xavier Mckinney. Adoree Jackson, he's been really good. Maybe not quite what you were hoping for. Interceptions number, not where you'd probably want it to be for a guy that's your big ticket free agent. But the biggest reason I am bringing him up for is, like I said, that big ticket free agent. He was a massive signing. He's done a really good job. Some pass breakups, locking down some players. I would just like to see more turnovers forced from him, in my opinion. I think that, when you're paying a lot of money for a corner like Adoree Jackson, you want to see more turnovers forced on his side of the ball. So a little bit more aggression, more willingness to get after the football, try to get yourself in a better place to make those interceptions, but he is going to be a piece in that defense nonetheless. Then on the offensive side of the football, and I really don't have a ton to get into here, and we'll go into a lot of that as we further our way through the video. There's 2 people on the offense that I really want to highlight. Cadarius Tony, who has had injuries, issues through the year, hasn't had a ton of yardage or receptions in any game, but that week 5 performance that he had, where he was looking at 10 receptions, 189 yards, that's the type of flash and the type of talent that Tony brings to the team, and I think the Giants are looking for in the addition of him. He needs to be that guy, but on a far more consistent basis. Again, I know he's dealt with injury. He missed a lot of time, and it's been an up and down year for this entire offense, and that's putting it very lightly. But it is worth mentioning he's a rookie wide receiver that they drafted this year. I think he's going to be around for a while, and I think he's going to be really good. It's just there's a lot that needs to be retooled on this offense before things start to look any better than they have this year. The other guy I want to highlight is, of course, tackle Andrew Thomas. He's allowed a 1 sack in 462 snaps. That is something that you cannot go without mentioning. 1 sack, 462 times you had to drop back and protect that quarterback. Excellent numbers there. Great job keeping the quarterback upright and protected, at least for him specifically. Now, those are the building blocks. For team needs, and we have a lot to discuss as far as player personnel and stuff like that too. The very first one that I have labeled here, and I'm curious to see what you Giants fans think about this one, but in my opinion, I think it's starting to show, and if I was the Giants, I would probably go this direction. Whether you argue it's the number one need or not is fine, but quarterback is something that I think they need to start looking at. I don't want to sit here and rag on Daniel Jones. Him being in New York, he gets plenty of media attention as it is. You know, there's no escaping them. They're like rabid wolves over there with the media. At this point, I don't know if it's Joe Judge or I don't know if it's Daniel Jones. I don't know who it is that is the issue with the entire offense as a whole. If it's Garrett, I don't know. But I don't really think Daniel Jones is progressing in the right direction. And honestly, just looking at his numbers and the play he's had, he's probably regressing. And you can argue, the offensive line, and there has not been a running game, and even the wide receivers and tight end have not really done their fair share of the heavy lifting with the offense. But, a great quarterback is supposed to elevate players around him, and it feels like he's regressing. The position groups around him are regressing. I don't know. I don't want to go so much into detail with it. Giants fans, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about that whole situation with Daniel Jones. He's in year 3 now, and I don't know if I'm sold on it. Year 4 is coming up next. They've committed to DJ for another year, but they've got to start looking for competition, I think. And I think some people could agree with me on that. Something that's going to kind of try to push either Daniel Jones in the right direction or right to the bench where some people might argue he belongs. The second one that I have here is offensive line. They have not been as bad as a lot of people are saying. They're like smack in the middle in terms of sacks allowed for the year, so they have not been as terrible, but it's the running game that has just been abysmal this year, and it just does not feel like they are ferocious up front. When it comes to running the football, you need to be angry. You need to be tough. It's about dominating the opposing D-line and opening up those running lanes for those guys to get into the second and third level of the defense, and it just feels like the offensive line cannot do that. And maybe you can credit some of those issues to the running backs as well. However you want to go about it. The run game as a whole has just been like non-existent. And Daniel Jones being the leading rusher in a handful of games is not how you're going to win football games. Your running backs need to be putting up yards. They need to be putting up numbers. They need to have lanes to run through. And I just don't think that the offensive line in New York has been doing a great job at that. And honestly, I was more concerned about the pass blocking, but it seems like it's kind of reversed now where the run blocking or just running as a whole is just like kind of disappeared and lanes are not opening up anymore. They got to look for some offensive linemen, whether it's through the draft or free agency. That should be something that they're definitely looking at going into this year because Andrew Thomas is probably the only guy that's been graded fairly well throughout this entire season, and I mentioned him as a block to build off of for this offensive line as a whole. Next up, wide receiver group. Kenny Golladay has been paid $40 million guaranteed, and he has, I think, 499 receiving yards. You also have Darius Slayton, has not been the guy that I was kind of hoping for him to turn into this year after having a pretty stellar year last year. And then obviously Sterling Shepard's another one, a guy that has just been, so much potential, just never reached. This is not a great receiving group at all, and for Kenny Golladay to have been paid the money he has to not even have 500 yards going into week 17 now of the season, that is not okay. They got to figure something out at wide receiver, whether they bring in somebody else or look to the draft. Obviously, Cadarius Tony's there. I think he has a really bright future, and once things start to get sorted out on offense, we'll probably get a little bit more out of him, and hopefully he can stay healthy as well, doesn't get hurt, things like that. But goddamn, that's all I really got to say. This is a wide receiver group that I feel like has had so much potential and had a lot of potential coming into this year and has been a massive letdown. And whether you want to put that weight on Daniel Jones or not, whatever side of that conversation you are on, you've got to be disappointed with the output that these wide receivers have had this year. The last need that I have listed, and I don't know who a single linebacker is on the New York Giants without having to look them up, to be honest with you. When I went into this video, I was like, I don't even know, besides Blake Martinez, which is he a Giant? Yeah, because they got him from the Packers, but I'm pretty sure he's hurt right now. I can't name a single other guy playing linebacker for this team. I'm not saying I'm the most knowledgeable of every single player in the NFL. I know a fair amount of players on a fair amount of teams, and I'm constantly trying to, make sure I have as many names down as possible on all these teams so I can really look at players and, understand who's playing where and understand, teams as a whole. I couldn't tell you outside of Blake Martinez, who was having a really good year initially. Who else is that? Who plays linebacker for New York? That's a problem. That is a problem. Mike, Will, Sam, all of them. They definitely should go after linebacker in this year's draft. Like I said, they have a really good defensive front. They have some pretty good corners. James Bradbury has kind of declined a little bit after having a few strong years in a row, which is a little bit disappointing. But, promising safeties, really good up front, pretty solid secondary, so to speak. The linebacking core, they got to figure something out there. I think that they probably go linebacker. Gone are the days of like John Bostic being in the middle of the middle of the field there. I just think that John Bostic, is that his name? I feel like that's not his name. What was his? I can't remember. The Giants had a really good linebacker for a really long time, and I'm sorry it's slipping my name right now, and it's kind of disrespectful that I'm forgetting because he was really good for a while. But gone are the days of strong defense with this team. At the linebacker position, we need to get that going again in New York, and I think finding some good leaders to get that whole defense situated would really help. And I don't even really look at the defense as a big issue on this team, but shoring up a position like that would only help them. But ultimately, the offense, as you can tell, is probably the biggest thing that needs to be retooled here, especially at the offensive line and quarterback position, in my opinion. I just don't know how this team continues on with Daniel Jones playing behind that offensive line that is not opening up the running game. And Daniel Jones seems like he does not trust to protect him either at this point. Whether the offensive line is protecting him or not, he just seems like he's scared the entire time to play. Which brings me to the rest of my points for this video. And the first one being the fact that Daniel Jones and Joe Judge are coming back. It has been committed by the New York Giants. I do not know how I feel about that for New York. After the way this season has gone for them, I did not really expect both of them to be coming back. I was thinking more along the lines of maybe one or the other, less likely Joe Judge than Daniel Jones, and then maybe bringing in somebody to compete with him to try to push him to be better. The fact that the Giants have already committed to Jones and Judge for next year worries me because you can't get different results if you don't try to change things up if it's not going well. At this point in time, you've seen a lot from this pairing, and it's not working. It's not working. I would like to hear from you Giants fans how you feel about that. I saw a lot of frustrated ones when that was announced, or at least not announced by the team, but the rumors are coming out that was going to be the case. I'm not really sold on Joe Judge at this point anymore. There has been some drama going on around the team. This whole year has been quite a letdown. Like I said, I thought this team had a ceiling of 10, 11, 12, maybe even 13 wins if things went really, really well for them. They had all the skill talent that you could ask for. The big concern really was O-line. Everyone was expecting Daniel Jones now that he had the weapons to make the leap. And the defense has been pretty good. Defense has not really been the problem for this team. But with some of the fighting that was going on during training camps and whatnot, and how Joe Judge handles situations, and he's just constantly, flying off the cuff with the things he says. And I don't know, maybe he's not the right fit for this team. As for Daniel Jones, I mean, part of the reason why I'm pitching so hard that they probably have to move on from him is just because, like I said, this is the third year. He hasn't played a full 16 games. He has no more than 5 wins as a starter. And he has a career completion percentage of 62.8%. Like, that's not good. The league average feels like it's somewhere around like 65, 66, and it's slowly going up as this passing league just becomes more and more of a passing league. I feel like every single year, it's just the completion percentage average just seems to start rising higher and higher and higher. Obviously, you can't blame Daniel Jones for everything. The offense has been lacking the last few years that he's had, like with the group that he's had. But, I mean, you have Evan Ingram. Saquon Barkley is back there, and granted, he has not always been healthy because of injuries and whatnot, and, you know, you can argue that this was probably his best receiving core that he's had so far, but, like, where are the results? And if you want to argue that maybe it's just Joe Judge and his system that's really failing them, maybe it is. And that comes to my point of like, okay, then maybe we need to move on from Joe Judge and see what Daniel Jones, but like, is resetting a system and bringing him back to square one in a playbook going to be the answer? I don't know. There obviously aren't massive upgrades going into this offseason. There's a ton of quarterback rumors going on right now. The Seahawks, with their struggles, have, you know, Russell Wilson was already a topic of discussion before the season started. Obviously, the Rodgers thing as well. I've been reading some places that are popping up names like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr potentially being on the move as well. So, I mean, there is potential for there to be some veteran QBs available that are actually worth going after. That would be, in my opinion, a considerable upgrade at the quarterback position, but you don't necessarily know whether those guys are going to be available or not. And then right now, no one seems to be in love or really sold on this year's quarterback draft class. And after taking Daniel Jones just a few years ago, going after another quarterback in the first round is not a great look, but it might be necessary. Or at the very least, just bring in some legitimate competition for him. As for my final thoughts for this team and to kind of wrap everything up, it's been a real disappointing year, I think, for the Giants, at least in my opinion. Like I said, I thought this was a team that was going to potentially contend or really push for the playoffs this year. I thought they had all the skill position players in the world at Daniel Jones' fingertips. I was hoping that Joe Judge's fire would be able to lead this team to a really good record this year, and it has been a complete disaster and complete flip of what I was expecting it. They were my dark horse to win the NFC East. And I think it's time that if you were going to make a change immediately, Joe Judge is probably the first one that needs to go. I don't know if putting Daniel Jones in a new system to start all over again is the best idea, but I'm less sold on Joe Judge than I am on Daniel Jones. Jones could really be suffering from everything that's going on around him, the drama, the inconsistencies of the offense, the system, whatever it may be. It could be Jones as well. Maybe they both have to go. I don't know what the actual answer is for all of that, but I think that he needs to shoulder some of the blame because he has not produced to what people are expecting him to. I think the coaching staff is obviously supposed to be shouldering some of this blame as well for not putting a good system and team around him because, like I said, the offensive line has been an issue for a while, and I think that's hurt Daniel Jones's development as well. As for the defense, they're pretty good on the defensive side of the football. This is a defense that has not really struggled, but has struggled more so because of their offense than anything else. I like the defense of the Giants, and I think that, you know, add a couple more pieces just to continue to strengthen and build on the defense that you have. It's fairly young. You have some really good players all over the field there. The defense does not need a ton of work. You just want to keep adding on to what you're already building over there in New York. I think another thing that needs to be looked at seriously is the state of Saquon Barkley and what they're going to do with him now going forward. Considering he's been kind of a non-factor this year, he has not done a ton, the injuries and whatnot. You need to take a look at that and figure out what you want to do with your running back situation. If you want to move to more of a committee system and what's going to go on with that, because I don't want to say that Barkley had such a good rookie year, and to think that all that is just gone now, that would suck. And I also don't know if that's the case. That just needs to be looked at and evaluated. I don't know where they need to go with that and what they should decide to do, but that definitely needs to be reevaluated. I think it's going to be a few seasons before we really see the Giants make a turnaround because if they're keeping Joe Judge and Daniel Jones at the helms of their spots, I don't think they're going to be getting any different results next year for that. And if they decide to blow things up and start over, you're probably looking at another 2, 3, 4 seasons, and 4 seasons is at worst, before you really see any major turnaround and see the Giants start to make headway in the NFC East. Very unlikely. Obviously, it's always possible they make a giant bounce back next year, but based off what we've seen the last few years with the Giants, I'm not looking too positive at the very moment. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below, Giants fans. What am I hitting on? What am I wrong and right about? Love to hear you guys' opinions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Enjoy the first day of your new year, and I will catch you guys Monday or Tuesday. So I'll see you then.